Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. When you hear the word Egypt, what's the very first image that pops into your head, right? For most of us, it's this snapshot, completely frozen in time. You know, the majestic pyramids, a glowing golden pharaoh's mask, maybe just endless dunes of sand. But today, we're going to unpack a totally different perspective that pretty much shatters that static image. We're looking at Egypt not just as a spot on a map or a dusty chapter in an ancient history book, but as a living, breathing continuum of civilization. It's a place where this ancient, massive legacy is actively shaping the modern world as we speak. I am so pumped to guide you through this material, so let's just jump right in.
So let's kick things off with a quote from the text that I absolutely love. Egypt is a land with a heart that has been beating for thousands of years. I mean, wow. That phrasing is so intentional. A beating heart implies life, right? Rhythm, continuity. It totally shifts our perspective from just staring at cold stone monuments to actually feeling the pulse of a continuous human story. And this beating heart metaphor, that is going to be our guiding light for this entire explainer today.
All right, part one, a beating heart of history. To really set the stage here, we need to explore exactly how this region uniquely bridges that massive gap between ancient wonders and the sheer bustling reality of everyday modern life. Just picture this. Modern students, backpacks on, walking around, and right there, in their line of sight, are the Great Pyramids. It perfectly captures this core concept that Egyptians proudly call this land home because it's a place where the past and the present don't just awkwardly sit next to each other, they actually harmonize. The ancient world isn't fenced off behind some glass case. It's literally the backdrop of their daily commute.
Which brings us to a super vital concept, harmony. And we're not just talking about things looking pretty together. We mean the peaceful, really prideful coexistence of their ancestors' greatest civilizations alongside modern daily life. It's about recognizing that Egypt has always played this massive, continuous role in the world. It's not just about surviving history. It's about thriving right alongside the ghosts of the greatest builders in human history and actually drawing energy from that legacy rather than being intimidated by it. Moving on to part two, pioneers of world knowledge. So let's shift our focus for a second from the physical landscape, the sand and the stones, to the intellectual landscape. Egypt's ancestors built one of the absolute greatest civilizations in history by handing the world some incredibly foundational knowledge. We are talking about three massive pillars here: writing, mathematics, and medicine. Just pause and think about that for a second. Every single time you jot down a quick note, figure out a tip at a restaurant, or take a pain reliever, you're actually participating in this long chain of human knowledge that has a deep, fundamental anchor in ancient Egypt. We are literally still relying on the seeds of those brilliant advancements today. Now, the really crucial part is how they managed all this knowledge. Take hieroglyphs, for example. These incredibly intricate symbols carved into temple walls, they were way more than just beautiful art or decoration. They were a deliberate, brilliant, and highly functional system to record history. Honestly, they understood the assignment. They knew that for knowledge to survive the test of time, it had to be meticulously documented and preserved in stone. And that intense commitment to being an intellectual powerhouse, it's so brilliantly illustrated by the Library of Alexandria. This was not just your local collection of dusty scrolls. It was the ultimate hub that gathered knowledge from all over the known world. It made Egypt the undisputed center of global learning. It was essentially the Internet of Antiquity, a massive, centralized server of human thought and discovery. Okay, let's head into part three, crossroads for global trade. Geography, as they say, is destiny. And Egypt's geography totally transformed it into this bustling, vibrant bridge for commerce and human connection. Just consider the reality of being a global crossroad. This was literally a bridge where the world met, a major hub for merchants traveling along the mighty Nile and braving vast, endless deserts. Just imagine the sheer volume of human traffic. You've got different cultures, different languages, completely different needs, all converging on this one geographical choke point. It was basically the ultimate ancient networking event that just never ended. And the wealth flowing through this area? Absolutely staggering. You had precious metals like gold driving entire economies, spices that were absolutely essential for both culinary arts and food preservation, papyrus fueling global communication, and grain, the fundamental food staple that literally fed empires. Egypt held immense economic power and reach. They basically held the keys to both luxury and pure survival. But if we look past the physical trade of gold and grain, we find the real magic, the invisible trade. Because the most valuable thing traded at this crossroads wasn't sitting in a merchant's cart.
It was the exchange of ideas. People met, they debated philosophies, and they traded inspiration, which made Egypt a profound source of innovation for so many other civilizations. Ultimately, the wealth of the mind far outlasted all that gold.
Which brings us to part 4, modern progress, ancient pride. Now, let's pull our narrative right back into the present day to see how that ancient beating heart is actively fueling today's incredible growth and ambition. Today, you see this really striking modern juxtaposition. Rising, ultra-modern cities are growing right alongside these ancient historical monuments. The monuments still stand there with immense pride, sure, but the country doesn't just sit in their shadow. The cities rise up to meet them. It's this incredibly dynamic landscape where having a deep respect for antiquity absolutely does not hit the brakes on modern development. And you see this philosophy translating into concrete action everywhere. We're talking massive modern infrastructure projects, new roads, cutting-edge bridges, expansive new neighborhoods. And these aren't just blocks of concrete and steel, right? They demonstrate to the rest of the world Egypt's ongoing determination to progress. They're actively building a future that is every bit as ambitious as their past. To really put this whole continuum into perspective, thousands of years ago, their ancestors built the awe-inspiring pyramids of Giza. Then, centuries later, Alexandria was busy gathering all the globe's knowledge. And today, that same continuum lives on, with the construction of massive projects like the Grand Egyptian Museum and those sprawling modern neighborhoods we just talked about. It's just a beautiful illustration of their architectural and cultural ambition. They deeply honor history while they are actively out there shaping the future. Ultimately, modern Egyptian pride stems from a really deep cultural understanding of sacrifice. Think about the sheer hard work, the sweat, and the unwavering dedication required to build those pyramids and write those histories. That effort is so deeply understood and honored by the generations living there today. That sacrifice? That is the true, rock-solid foundation they are building upon. Which leaves us with this final, powerful question to think about based on everything we've unpacked today. How does understanding the sacrifices of our ancestors shape the future we build today? Because when we look back at the beating heart of history, we aren't just looking at the past, we're looking at the very fuel for our own modern progress. I really hope this explainer gave you a totally new lens through which to view not just Egypt, but how any great legacy can inspire the future. Keep learning, keep asking those big questions, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.